Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Fon sitting here with...
Kevin Horde.
How's it going, buddy?
We had some technical issues, but we are rolling.
We're in, man. We're back in. The nice thing is we record this on third-party apparatuses, so...
Apparati.
Yeah, it's always a good way to go. Just complicating things more, you know. We're moving right along, though, in talking about Clone Wars stuff. We are getting back in a rhythm here.
Yeah, it feels good, man.
Yeah. And one not super important thought that I want to kind of bring up is that before, while we were still in Resistance Land, this little thing from the last time that we were recording came out called Disney Plus. So it's been so much easier watching these episodes now.
I mean, we always, pursued episodes in a legal fashion prior to that.
Oh, surely, yes.
Now you can watch it on the bus or on the John or on your bicycle.
Just easily streaming.
You cannot watch it working out at the gym. That's not a thing right now. So...
But yeah, I had that thought earlier today as I was editing previous episodes, and I was like, oh, right, I can just look up stuff on the website now instead of... Yeah, yep. Anyways, today we're moving along to Massacre. This is Season 4, Episode 19, air date of February 24th, 2012.
Yeah, I got a production code of 411 on that. Before we jump into that, I did want to, at the end of last week's episode, I said that we were going to just throw a shout out to an iTunes review that we had from way long time ago. So I apologize for taking forever to get to this. We had a little bit of Resistance hiatus. But anyway, we are back in the Clone Wars. And Mr. Nod gave us 5 stars. Super awesome to him. He said, thank the maker. After all this time searching, I've finally found a Star Wars podcast that takes the time to delve into Clone Wars one episode at a time. Does this mean I died and went to heaven? ? I don't know, because, immediately after that, we took a huge break. So hopefully Mr. Nod is still with us. But we're giving a nod back to you, Mr. Nod.
That's way too kind. Especially, hopefully they're not in the range where we're doing like the 3-hour episodes. So.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, Mr. Nod, if you're still listening.
Yeah.
1, if you're still listening. 2,
awesome.
I got some other questions for you. Shoot me an email. Hit me up on Twitter at NotTheNerds. We can go several different routes, but
yeah.
We also had Hello There on YouTube. Seems to be pleased that we're back posting YouTube videos as well. So he said
nice.
The Clone Wars is back and something else.
Yeah,
so you can see his comments there.
Back on Clone Wars, we're moving along. Back to Massacre. This one's directed by Stuart Lee and written by Katie Lucas.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So then, fortune cookie on this one is one must let go of the past to hold on to the future.
Who said it, buddy?
I don't know about this one.
I almost went to Kylo Ren just because of his comment, let go of the past, kill it if you have to.
Yeah.
It's kind of a take on that. And then I was like, just the verbiage of it doesn't kind of match what I would imagine he would vocalize, right?
Like his speech style. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to Obi-Wan, but I think I'm leaning to a paraphrase or a retelling of something that Kylo Ren would say. Or maybe Ben Solo would have said it.
A calmer Ben Solo.
Right.
I like that. I dig it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
So instead of Ben Kenobi, we'll go with Ben Solo.
Yeah,
Works
I dig
for
that one.
Me. What I saw in the newsreel here was just kind of an not really a recap, but just kind of like an update of where Savage Opress and Ventress have been. It's kind
Yeah.
of what got Ventress to this point, because we've been away from them for a while, but it's kind of picking up where some events that happened in season 3, right?
Yeah, I honestly, as soon as this newsreel started, this newsreel does pretty much lay down the foundation for this episode in a very traditional crawl way, right? That yellow crawl fashion, rather than recapping other stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, as soon as Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress were brought up, I honestly could not remember the last time we actually did see them. So, to these newsreels credits, this part worked in catching me up as to where they are. Again, that 6-month period of us taking off from Clone Wars and just trying to bash our way through Resistance kind of messed me up there. So
Yeah, it definitely extends the length of time since we've seen these episodes. So had we been watching them, week by week, it would not have been as long.
honestly, though, even then, like I don't even know if I would have remembered prior. My memory, like as we're barreling through this, I think it's a combination of just like us having seen so many episodes of this, because this is the 89th Clone Wars story
Correct.
that we're covering, and the fact that on current context where I'm sitting at home watching and taking in so much other media as well, right?
Fair enough.
And I admit to those things as well. It's all kind of melding together in my brain. Like I'm doing like a Bob's Burgers mega watch right now while self-isolation here, right? Playing so much Animal Crossing. So I don't think it's the fault of the show nor our time, nor it's just like it's the combination of all these things and the fact that I'm getting old and my memory is falling apart. It's definitely some pre-dementia happening, I'm sure, over here. So
that might be a little overkill of a diagnosis, but I do share your sentiment that, and not to say that these are forgettable or anything, but I think it's
Right.
the volume of Clone Wars that I've seen lately. Things just blend together, and it's harder
Yes.
to isolate what is from what episode. So it looks like the last
Exactly.
time that we would have seen these two characters would have been Witches of the Mist, and that is season 3, episode 12. So, I mean, we're a full season removed from
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Consequently, that was also written by Katie Lucas. So I guess we're gonna see what happens moving forward. How much she pulls from things she's written in the past.
Yeah. So just real quickly, as we've discussed about the newsreel, but not quite the contents itself. So
Sure.
basically, where we're at is Asajj Ventress, it has gone into hiding, and she's returned to Dathomir to try and seek sanctuary with the Nightsisters. That's basically where we're at. So, she's running away after the betrayal of Savage Opress and Count Dooku. There's a battle there. Mother Talzin pretty quickly welcomes her back. No qualms whatsoever. Is like, hey girl, come on back in.
Yeah,
We're all
immediately
sisters
she's
here.
like, you know what you need to do is you need to dump that Dooku boy, and you need
Right.
to forget about that Sith nonsense he was putting in your head and just come back to the girls. You're
Right.
one of us.
My first note, even as Sisterhood of Dathomir, is strong.
Yeah.
That's the very first note I wrote down. So, and Talzin even is like, hey, you should probably stop worrying about being a Sith. Just, you're much more cooler than just that one label. Like, the Nightsisters are cool too. Guess what? Like, come join us.
At this point, I started wondering if Savage was alive. And I was like, I don't remember how like that panned out. And the newsreel did a great job of taking the the last story that we saw them in
Mm-hmm.
and condensing it to like
two
2 seconds,
Yeah.
maybe. And I was
It
like,
was a really quick newsreel.
I was immediately pulled back in, and I'm like, I remember something happened. I don't remember all the details, but I definitely know there was a fight, and Savage Opress kind of came out on top. But then there was, some betrayal and some switcheroos, and everybody kind of went their separate way. But Ventress felt backstabbed and defeated, so that's why she went into hiding, and then she's coming out of it, and this is what we're finding happens after the fact. So
Right.
kudos to the newsreel here. Sometimes I bitch about them, or sometimes they give more information than others, but
Right.
so far well done. And
like I said, this one does a really good job of setting up context for this episode specifically too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's like broad strokes of where we are in the war, like, oh, this is happening. Meanwhile, Padme has to deal with banking clan.
and sometimes it's like real generic stuff.
Yeah,
it's like
war
people
is
are fighting, and there was a fight at a place where people were fighting, and here we go.
Right, exactly. That said, Ventress agrees to everything Sister or Mother Talzin says, and is like, "Yeah, I'll join your ritual thingy. I'll go through the initiation." It's like a very bizarre sorority here. So.
I have some questions about that, but before we get to those questions, in this episode we do cut to space, and we see a space fleet, and then Grievous walks up to Dooku. I assume this is on Sereno, right? Dooku's homeworld.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, they're at Dooku's palace or whatever. It kind of struck me as odd that this whole war has been going on, and two of the big generals have time to just like meet at one of the generals' houses, right? For like a personal vendetta.
Okay, that right there was a question I was going to ask maybe at the end of the episode, but we could bring it up here.
Let's do it.
I agree with you. It was kind of I honestly did have the same question regarding this personal vendetta thing. I'm like, hey, there's this other war happening. Also, like, Dooku's plans just got foiled in the last episode. So then now his attention is just like, oh, by the way, it's again in 2020 context, it's like, oh, that bitch Carol Baskins, we gotta go get her.
Right.
Right. So Dooku's got this weird thing about Ventress, who would be his Carol Baskins. And wants to.
I was gonna drop a political thing, but I think I'm gonna stay out of that. But
we dove in before. Tiger King seems a safer bet. I would say.
Maybe I'll bring my comment up to you off mic. But
right,
yeah. Going back to the last episode, Dooku like had this 4-part elaborate plan, or Morale Val, I guess, had this 4 like bazillion part elaborate plan to kidnap the Chancellor. That involves like a game show and all kinds of other stuff. That failed, and then I don't know how much time has passed between that episode and this episode. I don't think it really matters. Could have been a day, could have been a month. But it's an odd jump to go from plan didn't work to kidnap Palpatine, so we'll just call General Grievous from the front line to my house, and he's going to bring all his troops, and I'm going to go after Ventress.
Well, that's the other thing, too. So we'll get to that later, too. But, like, there's a full, like, armada that comes with him of troops and droids.
There are
tanks.
more droids and ships in this battle to get Ventress than there have been on, like, planetary scale invasions.
Right. Yeah. So I agree. It's a really bizarre point there. And Grievous has no issues. He's like, yes, I will do this. Fantastic. Dathomir, always wanted to visit. So, and the mission, too, is not only to get vengeance against Ventress, but to just eradicate the entire Nightsisters.
Kill the witches is what I wrote.
Yep. Kill the witches. So basically, do we cut back and get that initiation ritual? Is that what happens next?
It does show not Dooku. It does show Grievous like walking back to his ship, kind of telling this arbitrary battle droid what the plan is. He's like,
Right.
like scramble the fighters, gather the men,
Standard
sail
warfare
the
stuff.
masses. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Very standard war stuff that we could have insinuated without the scene even. Like,
right. What I thought was funny about this is that because of like the design of General Grievous and the design of the battle droids, like their legs are different sizes, so the battle droid is almost like jogging to keep up with them. So
yeah.
Grievous is moving at like a regular pace, but this battle droid, you can tell like the legs have to be animated like faster,
Right. Just to keep pace.
It's kind of comical because usually you see like the waist up shot where it just looks like torso's floating, but it's panned back enough that you can still see the feet movement, and just because of the gait of one versus the other, it's an amusing parallel between the two. But yes, then we cut back to Ventress wades down into a pool, and I wrote baptism ? And then some things happen, and then Mother Talzin is like, it's time for a feast to celebrate the baptism of our new sister into our order. And I was like, all right, it was a literal baptism.
I honestly, I think this is perhaps due in part or in large part to our differences of culture growing up, I guess is the best way to put that.
Sure.
But as soon as she mentioned baptism, I'm like, yes, that's what that would be. Because I was like struggling in my notes. I'm like, what is happening? Like, the baptism is not kind of like a set thing in my brain, right?
Yeah, I had written witchy magics with a KS induction ceremony, and then crossed that out and just immediately wrote baptism.
Yeah,
I'm like, there's loyalty. Water. She's getting dunked. We got a baptism here.
I was like, loyalty pledge bath scene. So, and I do have one more question too, because I noticed it with this scene, and this is a technical thing, and I'm really curious. I think this might have been a Disney Plus issue as well from my viewing of it. So I admit that again, bringing that up because I've noticed this before too in other programs, like rewatching some MCU movies via D Plus instead of putting in the Blu-rays, which I actually do own as well. But this whole episode was really dark, like difficult to see dark. Like I know you didn't watch it, but Game of Thrones Battle at the Wall or Battle in the North dark. Like I had to switch my TV to game mode and bump that brightness way up just to make sense of what I was seeing at all in this episode.
I can totally understand that, and I will tell you my experience was slightly different. I watched this both times for pre-recording on my phone, and it was around this time that I was like, oh, check the brightness on your phone, and then I bumped the brightness all the way up. So I don't know what it would look like on my home TV.
Like from your standpoint, I'm really curious if like you popped in even the DVDs versus what Disney Plus has. I'm really curious to see if you could tell a brightness difference, because I only bring up the Disney Plus issues because like in MCU films, and it's a scene by scene thing that's happened, and I've seen other comments about this on Reddit and other places like that too, where some scenes for whatever reason seem not only dim, but the contrast drops a lot too. So there's just no contrast at all. Like whites,
it's just kind of muddy.
Yeah, the whites are really grayed out, and the blacks are,
I've
really
had that issue,
bright.
and we've talked about it with my theatrical cinematic experience on a few movies, which definitely affected my opinion of those movies. But we don't need to,
which sucks.
We don't need to divert into that. So let's pull back into this one.
For sure, like, because I think that's what led me to have issues with trying to figure out. That's why I didn't even my brain didn't go towards baptism at all is because like I heard water, I didn't see her getting in water.
It's
And
pretty
then-
dark water though, man. Like I don't know if I would call it thick or it's
not
not. It's
oil.
like non-translucent water, right?
Yeah, basically.
It's just
yeah.
like a dark, opaque water because
Yeah, it
when
still
she
has
is
the-
dunked, like as
Uh-huh.
soon as her face is under, it just like closes up.
Yeah.
The water
it still
around
has
her
the
face.
same. It still has the same splashy viscosity as water, you know.
Correct.
So,
But yeah,
not. But you can't see through it. So
yes,
But then when they get to the feast afterwards, jump into that. The note I have there is random belly dancers of Dathomir.
I wrote campfire and dancing ?
Right.
And then we're introed to another witch of Dathomir named Karis. And then immediately a
Yeah.
fight begins. And
Yeah, pretty much Grievous shows up, right?
Yeah, Grievous shows up.
Mhm.
The fight begins. Ventress and Talzin talk a little bit. Ventress is all like regretful. She's like, so many will die and it's all because of me. And Mother Talzin is like, don't worry about it. Like, shit happens. Like, let's do our thing.
Right.
You know,
We can fight this
we're
off. Yeah.
we're sisters. we're here for each other. Like,
Yeah.
this is the point of being in the
in
order
in
of
the sorority,
witches.
the Nightsisters.
Yeah, in the Nightsisters. And then so Ventress like enters the fray, and lo and behold, Karis is next to her and just gets smashed by like part of a sculpture that falls off, part of a statue.
Yeah, it's like a falling column or something like that from the building too,
Mhm.
or something.
But my point
it's-
is that like we go to Celebration, we meet this girl that's like, I'm honored to be sisters with you, and then the fight begins, like the
And she
battle
dead.
begins, and then the next time we see her, she's crushed by a rock.
Yeah. And then she even is like, don't worry, just fight and live and win. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Cool. It's around this time, I believe, that Grievous unveils that he is the defoliator tanks here as well, right?
Yeah, it's sometime soon after this. I think before that, Talzin goes to Old Daka.
Yes. So Mother Talzin departs, and she's like, I will go talk to Old Daka. And I did write a note. I was like, who is Old Daka?
Yeah, never been heard of before. Never
Yep.
will be heard of again.
Yep. So she runs off and runs inside. Two other guards follow her, and then Mother Talzin turns to the two guards and is like, hey, go to my room. There's like a stone in there.
A
Go find that
silver
stone.
orb.
Yeah. Grab that and bring it back, and I'll meet you later. And then they're like, okay, cool, and run off. And then Mother Talzin does like a magic spell thingy on the cave wall, it seems like, and then that opens up to like a green glow, and it's basically like the weird Star Wars equivalent of walking through the Phantom's mirror.
Yeah, I guess so.
And she enters through, and there's like this weird little room with this lady just sitting there, and she looks bored beyond compare.
She an old lady.
So my note is, does old Daka just sit around day after day waiting to be called upon? Like,
I
what?
guess she's like a combination of the one of the three brothers, like the knight from the Last Crusade,
Right, the one hanging out guarding the
Yeah.
Holy Grail.
and a combination of him and the queen of the Geonosians, which
Yeah.
their voices were pretty similar, by
Yeah.
the way. That, like, when I heard Old Doc, I was like, oh, she sounds like the Geonosian queen speaking. Didn't look at the voice cred, so got no proof there. But yeah, this lady just sits around, I guess, and like
Yeah.
thinks
And
about
Talzin-
magic.
Yeah, at most that we know about her, Talzin just goes, you are the oldest and wisest among us.
Maybe this is just her room. She didn't want to be at the at the barbecue.
But you need like a full spell to get in there. She's like the world's best self-quarantiner.
I mean, I don't know, because later the two guards come in that you just spoke of with the silver orb. And
Yeah, see, I didn't get this either. Yeah.
it's not like it keeps them out.
And we'll get to it later. It doesn't really keep anybody out.
That's very true.
I don't. Yeah, no. So,
Do you
Mother Talzin. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you want to talk about this battle? But let's finish up with Mother Talzin and this
Old Daka
room
lady.
real quick. With
Yeah, so
Old
Mother
Daka.
Talzin. The whole reason we get to Old Daka is because Mother Talzin requests of Old Daka to call upon the dead or something like that. I forget I forget what they exactly word this army of the dead as.
So
but
she
it's an
goes
army
there
of the
for
dead.
reinforcements, and then I think you're right with the army of the dead.
Yes.
Or
So
I don't know
more
if it's army of the
zombies.
dead or army of the undead. One of the two.
I don't think they said undead in this. But basically we get more zombies in the Star Wars universe is what happens here.
Yeah, so this is the second set of zombies. The first zombies.
Yeah, the other one.
were-
Geonosians.
Yeah, the worm in the nose.
Yeah,
Worm in
that
the brain.
weird thing. Yeah. So the other ones were like the reanimated ones, and this is like the mystic undead, which is weird. And also, like, there's a really weird visual cue that happens that comes into play later in the strangest of ways. But I'll explain what happens here is that Old Daka says a spell of some sort,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates this green fog
Lightning
light
mist
thing.
thing. It's like
Yeah.
shaped like lightning, but acts like mist and travels through walls and reanimates
and it's
the
like a
corpses of these Nightsisters that were hanging
But
in egg sacs from trees.
it's not like a mist that travels on its own. It's like an ever-growing mist river through the sky
Yes.
that goes through and reanimates these pods to which the undead plop out of, and they turn into like the fast zombies from 28 Days Later is what happens.
Yes.
So just that is all important to some degree, and we'll kind of get back to that later, but we can discuss the battle that is ensuing outside if
Okay.
you'd like.
There's a shit ton of droids,
Yep.
like a lot, and varied in type and number. They got tanks. You brought up earlier defoliators. This is only the second time that we've seen those
Yep.
since what was that general's name? I don't know what that general's name was.
I don't know. But so I'm going to say the fight is pretty unique considering that we kind of have like this magic mystic thing happening versus the droids that we've seen over and over in Defoliator Tank. For the Nightsisters, they have like bows and arrows, but the bows themselves are basically static lasers that they can shoot off of a laser bow cast, I guess. So at least that part it's pretty cool. And once they get closer combat, there's a lot of cool things happening where like Ventress is hopping up on tanks and she's taking out the droids, and then she gets in her own tank and shoots another tank down. She does end up shooting out the defoliator tank, takes out more tanks basically. And then Grievous does encounter Ventress, and then Grievous does his Grievous thing where he pulls out 4 lightsabers. They get in a lightsaber fight. That all starts happening. But then when the dead start rising, that's when Ventress stops and is like, oh, the reinforcements are here. And then the army of the dead just starts like going nuts and running around and tearing the droids apart themselves as well.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that she had to explain to the audience essentially that the army of the dead were the reinforcements.
Right. After seeing Old Daka like reanimate them.
Right, we just saw Mother Talzin go and do this thing and say, hey, this is what I need. And Mother Daka's like, okay, this is what I'll do to fulfill your needs. And then Ventress is like, re-explain.
just in case you didn't get it at all. Just in case.
I liked this battle.
Yeah.
It was, we see a lot of droids versus clones and a lot of blasters, and
there's a lot of shooting back and forth.
Shooting back and forth and head-to-head fighting. And yes, we do get some of that. The type of weaponry is a little different with like the energy bow thing that we got going on. I thought the defoliator was interesting to like just kind of drop into this episode that we haven't seen
I will say
in a while.
The only problem I had with the defoliator was like its powers seem to change with every shot. Okay. Because sometimes it would shoot and like take out like a city block while like people are running, and like some of the Nightsisters get swept into the defoliating that's happening.
Okay.
And then like a second shot would hit, and Ventress would look really close to it, running away, and look like she's about to get engulfed. And then it changes shot, and she just like turns behind a tree and is A-okay.
Yeah, I did notice that. Like they did some hiding behind stuff, which should be 100% ineffective.
Against the defoliator, yeah.
I don't think they have as big a blast radius as the like test defoliator that we saw on the not the lemur planet, but the other one. But maybe it's possible that some of these are just like different size detonations. But I totally agree with you. You can't hide behind a rock. It's not going to save you. It'll defoliate around the rock, and you're going to be fried. It was interesting that these witches could outrun the defoliation.
Yeah.
But I mean, we get what,
Some
2 or 3 of them? I just thought it was a nice bit of technology that was explored in a previous episode that was brought back, because so often we see this like with the needle ship from Cat and Mouse, like the first episode that we talked about had the cloaking technology, right?
Yep.
Never see that again.
Nope.
Nanobots under your face. Never see that again.
Nope.
Hollow the hollow disguised matrix grid or whatever it was. I have no recollection of that ever again. But the defoliator, hey, they brought that back.
Hey,
like at least
for here. Yeah.
At least for here, They it was technology they established, and they're like, we need a thing to do this. Let's use the thing we already came up with. So
for sure.
I'm all right with it.
Yeah. We do cut back to Mother Talzin at some point. So while Old Daka is doing her thing, this other thing starts happening where Mother Talzin basically has a lock of Dooku's hair. That's what's in the silver orb that the 2 other guards bring back. And then Mother Talzin,
her Infinity Stone,
basically has a lock of Dooku's hair, his white hair, and she uses it to create like a magical voodoo doll in the likeness of Dooku, who then she uses her magic to torture him from afar. And we do
see a boiling pot of green goo or something. And
we do cut over to Dooku, and he like starts getting boils on his face and stuff while Mother Talzin is like dipping this voodoo doll into that green vat of magic goo.
Magic with a K.
Yes. I have questions about what the limits of her powers are here and why she just doesn't kill him immediately.
Okay.
Like,
so my question is, how did she get his hair?
Yeah, that's a question too.
So I'm gonna set up a scenario. I'm gonna tell you what happened. I don't know if it's the truth, but I think that Dooku and Talzin were in a relationship at some point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a romantic relationship. I don't know if it stretched that far.
Hey, it's close enough for her to get his hair.
Right, but she has some hair, right?
Yeah.
So she is using this to do her voodoo, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to make him hurt enough that he will call off the attack. I don't think she wants to kill him. And I don't know if it's because of some type of... She definitely threatens to. Like, she'll go all the way.
It, though. No, she says she's about to kill him at one point.
Right, but she's also like, if you call off Grievous and get your dudes out of here, then I won't kill you. Like,
he can't hear that though, can he? Oh no, he does. Never
yeah,
mind.
he totally does.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I completely forgot already. And I think it's like literally my next note too, where, so during the torture. So let's bring that up.
Sure.
Because it's like a magical chest burster, I guess. Like, right?
Yeah, she definitely green energizes out of his torso.
It's the magical version of the telecom thing, the hollow communications that we have. It's like the Star Wars version of what's the thing in Harry Potter when fuck
A
Sirius
Patronus?
Black? No, not the Patronus. When Sirius
when
is talking
Sirius
to the
Black
fire.
like talks in the fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like the Star Wars magical version of that, right?
yeah.
So whatever that system of communication was in Harry Potter, right?
Yeah, it's not the flu network, but it's because that's
yeah.
actually moving from one place to another.
That's
but
like-
it's when Sirius materializes in the fire and talks to Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yes, that definitely does happen, and Talzin does have communication with Dooku at that point. But Dooku knows what's going on. He does video Skype over to Grievous, and Grievous to tell Grievous, sorry, mission has changed. Instead of going after Ventress, you're going after Talzin. And he's like, there should be some green mist. Just follow it there and kill Talzin before she kills me. Right?
Yep.
That's
why
it's breadcrumbs all the way.
That's why bringing up the thing was like semi-important. Now, here's my question about that, or not question. My comment on that is that it's a weird limitation to put on the magical powers in order to have a weakness for Grievous to exploit and like literally follow the breadcrumbs back. Like, it's why does the magic need to have that
visualization?
Yeah, right. And just real quickly, because I was curious, I quickly Googled the Harry Potter thing. It literally is just called fire talking, according to the HP lexicon. It is still using flu powder. You have to use flu powder in order to make that connection, and then like you kind of stick your head in or something. So, anyways, that is.
So it was kind of right.
Oh yeah. So, that was just something that was bothering me because I was like, it has to have a name. Harry Potter is like Star Wars in that way, where like everything has a fucking name for some reason.
Yeah.
So it's fire talking. That's all. Just basic fire talking. But anyways, back to the weird Hansel and Gretel magical thing.
I'm curious. Let's keep going.
Like just
the magical floating breadcrumbs of green mist in the sky.
Yes, like it. As soon as the story exploited that feature, it felt cheap to me. You know.
Okay.
It's I don't know. It just made it way too easy for Grievous. Like, hey, like,
I mean,
there's this thing we can just fucking follow, and Grievous is like, hey, Ventress isn't even our concern anymore. Let's just we're going to Mother Talzin. Don't worry about them droids. Follow me.
Let's be honest, though, Lorenzo. It took somebody on another planet being voodoo dolled,
like tortured,
to call Grievous to be like, hey, do you see that big green mist in the sky that reanimated those egg sacs hanging from trees, and now there's zombies attacking you? Maybe you should follow that.
Yeah. Destroy it at the source. Stop. Yeah.
Right. Magic with a K. Follow it.
Cut off the head, not the tentacles.
Right.
Let's go.
So, if you feel it cheapens it, cool. I didn't have a problem with it at all. Grievous marches his ass over there, and one of the droids has like a bazooka.
Yep.
And just blows the hole in
just
the rock.
Ready to go. Yep. Just ready to go.
They
So
should have
that's
used the defoliator, man.
well, that's what I was saying earlier about the people can just get through this wall no problem because the green mist is just going through the wall. So again,
Well,
just,
to that comment, I will say I don't think Dathomir. I don't think this fortress, palace, house, dormitory, whatever you want to call it, was built with a droid attack in mind,
nor bazookas, yeah.
nor bazookas, but it was probably built to keep the
Like
common
other
folk
magic
out, right?
stuff, yeah.
Non-magical people, keep the
do you
muggles
think
out, the
yeah.
Dathomirian muggles out. And
Do you think there are magical protections on this place?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dathomirian society is like a female-run society, so they are, they are elevated, and the males, which would be the Zabraks, right, on like the other side of the planet or whatever. This is where Darth Maul and Savage Press came from. Are subservient. So I think this monastery, witch monastery, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be. Coven, right?
Yeah.
It's not designed for that type of attack. It's probably not designed for attack. It's, for isolation purposes. So, the fact that Grievous just walks up, blows a hole in the side of the wall, so be it. He
I wasn't even bothered
walks.
I wasn't bothered by the hole blowing. I was. I wish I phrased that so differently. I was still just bothered by them following this green mist, and they're like, "Oh, hey, just fire a hole at that thing."
The one thing that I didn't like about it is, I don't have a problem with them following the green mist. I don't have a problem with them blowing a hole in the wall. But Grievous just walks in and straight stabs old Daka, and like she does nothing at all to protect herself. She just raised, I don't even know how many people from the dead.
Right.
Was she using some of her magical energy to control those things, or was it like she brought them up from the dead and then that was that, and they're under their own power at that point? Because she's basically like, "Oh no," and he stabs her and she's dead.
Well, she dies, and then so do the army of the dead.
Correct.
So they drop back down.
So she had to have some type of connection to them, right?
I guess so. Like she's feeding power to them, because otherwise, like I don't see that she's controlling each and every single one individually, right? But her magical powers are giving them life force, I guess, would be the way to read into that.
Okay. I'm down with it. Do you think the droids were like, finally, it happened to somebody else?
I don't know. I think they're just like, cool, we did good this time. We actually did good. Super duper. But it's really interesting too. So we keep dissecting different parts of the same event, but as the hole is being blown in the wall too, old Daka's reaction is like, "Oh no, they found us," while she's still doing like the magical incantation stuff. And then that's when Grievous comes up, grabs her, and stabs her. Like that's her reaction. It's like, "Oh god, if only I had more time." Like, oh, okay, old Daka.
Yeah, you had plenty of time.
Right. Meanwhile, Mother Talzin is just like, "Nope, I'm out," and then like magical mists herself out of there.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about. That's something I want to revisit when we wrap all this up. But we do kind of quickly accelerate to the end of this episode. The zombies drop after Daka dies. The Nightsisters are all taken out in an Order 66 fashion.
Yep.
Just blaster execution style. Talzin evades anything that is going to happen to her by kind of smoke monstering her way out. Dooku pukes up some green smoke, and then he's all good. His boils are gone. And we see Ventress like stumbling through the woods, and then Talzin comes up to her and they have an interaction. Was there a time jump from when Grievous, like how long did this battle last? Right? So Grievous is fighting Ventress, gets the message to go get Talzin. Ventress kind of stumbles away, and then whoever is helping her gets shot and laid out. Grievous is like, I don't care about Ventress, we're going to Talzin. And then fast forward, and we see, the 501st Legion march with Anakin Skywalker into the Jedi Temple, except for it's Grievous and a whole bunch of droids marching to a rock wall, right? And then
I think it's like a day. I think
Okay.
this whole thing is like a day.
because the reason I ask is because like when like Grievous's approach, there are no longer any sisters like around that area.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they got past our front line, so just let them go and we'll just keep fighting ahead of us. Like, they're not attacked from behind or anything.
No.
2, when we see Ventress kind of stumbling around, there's no more droids or anybody around to be seen, right?
I think it's quick. She just ran. She gets away, right?
Okay.
In this Order 66 situation.
Okay.
So she fled, and I think it's all quick.
Okay.
It's all within the same day.
So during this interchange between Ventress and Talzin, Grievous is still on planet. It's not like he's gone already.
No.
Okay.
No.
So what do they talk about? Do you have any
Talzin
specifics?
Basically, Talzin is like, or Ventress is still blaming herself for the death of all of her sisters. Basically, so like
Man,
before
she should be.
Well, yeah, before she was blaming herself for the attack, and now she's like blaming herself for the death of her sisters. And Talzin is like, "Yo, don't worry about that. The past is the past at this point. So you got to figure out your own path." And then that's about it. And then she like voodoo vanishes away again.
Yeah, she's like, you'll always be one of us, but your path is now separate from us, and you got to figure out what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. Like, hey, we accept you in our tribe, even though you killed all of us, and now I'm abandoning you, and don't try to find me. Find your own way.
Figure shit out. I'm out of here. And then it's from there we get the iris in and cue loud music.
Yeah, Ventress, I think the last line says, Ventress says, "No, don't leave me." Like...
Yeah, as she vanishes away.
On her knees, fist in the air, like panning away, and iris in, man. That is that one. Cue loud music.
Yep.
What'd
that go?
What'd you say? How'd that go?
No, we got that one done. So.
That one's in the bag. Do you want to jump straight into thumbs up, thumbs down, and then we can kind of talk about some stuff as we explain our opinions here?
Yeah, go for it. I'll let you start.
I gave this one a thumbs up, man.
Mm-hmm.
I like this. It gives me many questions, some of which I may ask here shortly. But it's a fun change from the regular either Jedi or clones fight droids. Like, we still have the droid army, and this is still like Grievous or Dooku, right?
Mm-hmm.
Calling the directives to fight against some other people. But it's kind of, it's presented in a little bit refreshing way. Like, yeah, you could totally swap some of these characters out, and it could potentially be very similar to something that we've already seen, right? But it's not. It's different enough that we get it's a fresh perspective, I think. Mm-hmm. Whether or not this is part of the Clone Wars, as far as the specific battle in the specific wars, I would say no. It's a side story, and I'm cool with that. I don't know where we're leading because I can't remember what happens next. I like the magic with a K. My question is Mother Talzin the only magical one of this magical society? Like her and old Daka, and that's it? Because...
Yeah, I had that question too.
None of the Nightsisters seem to be able to do any type of magic.
Not in the way Talzin can certainly do. Like, depending on however you want to count Ventress's Jedi powers.
So that's questionable. Like, I've heard...
Right.
I've always been under the assumption that her Jedi powers are kind of fueled by this mystic stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
She uses like the mystic force with that has like a magic with a K background.
Yeah.
But the rest of the Nightsisters, they had like their light bow and arrows.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like none of them are conjuring spells. Like we don't have like any Scarlet Witch type stuff going on, except for from Mother Talzin.
Yeah, and I had that question too, because again, bringing up the Harry Potter thing, it would have been so cool to have like a full out magic versus droid fight, and the way magic is introduced here in Clone Wars as well, I think it's really well done. It seems to fit the universe. It doesn't seem out of place per se, right? There's nothing here that kind of breaks the Star Wars logic in this universe that involves the Force and creatures and all this other stuff. Again, the light the mist trail is one thing, but overall I think introducing magic in this way into this universe is pretty darn cool. And I pretty much agree with everything you've said. Thumbs up from me as well. Enjoyed this episode a whole lot. I agree with you. The change up in who is fighting who was interesting because, again, you have to remember, too, technically speaking, these are all antagonists from our point of view, but this story flips Ventress to become the protagonist for this story. This story is...
She's a sympathetic antagonist, for sure.
Yeah. But again, for this story specifically, like in this 22-minute adventure here, she is the protagonist of this adventure. Like, I found it interesting. Like, I wouldn't go as far as saying like I was rooting for her or anything like that, right? But I do find it interesting that in a show like this, they will take what was previously one of the villains and then give them their own protagonist arc. While dealing with the same villains throughout the big villains that have gone throughout this show up to this point. So I found that point very interesting.
Yeah. I agree. One comment I do have about this episode is that like we do get our obligatory lightsaber battle. And it's a good one, Ventress holds her own against Grievous, and I found myself thinking like, man, she would definitely be a foil against Anakin or Obi-Wan, the way that she is holding her own against Grievous, right? Even that being said, I thought the lightsaber battle was like one of the least interesting things in this episode.
I agree. Like,
and then I would follow that by like the actual battle that was going on. Is probably the second least interesting thing. The witchy stuff, like the zombies and what's actually going on with Ventress's story is more interesting to me than the actiony bits.
See, okay, so personally, I didn't need more zombies in the Star Wars universe. Maybe I think the zombies worked better here than they did in Geonosis for sure. But the zombies are maybe the one thing that's out of place for me in the Star Wars universe. Like I think I said this in the Geonosis arc at some point, where that arc with the Geonosian zombies, that's the one arc that I kind of wish wasn't Star Wars canon. Like that is just really odd to me. Here it's just kind of aided by the fact that this is like a mystic power and old Daka is controlling it.
Well, the Geonosian thing was a worm that burrowed into your brain and mind control.
Yeah, no, that's just bad.
So it's not specifically reanimated flesh zombie.
Yeah, but still. So is but that said, like the visuals of how the magic looks in this episode was really cool too. The animation was cool. The chest burster on Dooku was cool. I just wish there was more of it. To your point of why only Mother Talzin and Old Daka, right?
Yeah, it was weird. Because when we first see magic in this universe, it's when Darth Maul's legs are restored, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or when Savage Opress is like turned from wimpy Savage Opress into like giant head
Like
horny
Captain America.
Savage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Through magic.
Yeah.
And yes, like Mother Talzin was like leading the charge. I felt like the other sisters were like involved in it with either through chanting or I don't know, waving incense around or belly dance in the background or something.
Some strong sage being burned in the background.
Mm-hmm. But this episode specifically, it was like Mother Talzin has powers. Because at one point she like elevates herself into the sky and then like covers herself in a green orb and then is like shooting lightning out of her chest.
It all looked cool, you know.
It all does look super cool.
Yeah.
But it seems a little lacking in the rest of her followers. They are literally her lackeys because they lack the ability that she has.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But other than that, like, you know, I'm gonna say kudos to Katie Lucas here because this is an episode that picks up after the last one that she wrote, and they tie into the overall story of what's going on, and it's pretty fluid. You can probably take the episodes that she wrote and put them together, and they'd be pretty fluid from one to the next as far as a continuation of a story, but they still fit into the overall situation of what's going on, at least so far, right? Sometimes we get those, guest writers, maybe you would say, or guest directors, and it's like, okay, this is like way different than what's been going on, and the newsreel basically says, who gives a shit what happened last week? This is what's happening now. Watch it and enjoy. And that wasn't the case here, is what I'm saying.
No. Yeah. And again, I'll commend Katie Lucas, too, on really giving Asajj Ventress a point of view, too, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's totally to blame for all the Nightsisters dying out, you know, but at least there's that sense of remorse. Like, there's character traits that keep, like, the action scenes are cool, and this is a very action heavy episode.
Super action heavy.
Very action heavy. And for the most part, I feel like I'm always kind of like a 50-50 split on how I feel about like the action forward episodes, right? But on this one, it's because we start with Asajj as a character and we get that nice setup with, you know, the Mother Talzin introducing her back into the sisterhood of the traveling witch powers and all that stuff, you know? So I think that helps. And the fact that even we end there where Asajj Ventress is feeling self-pity, right? Rather than trying to end it with, you know, like an Anakin ribbing of Ahsoka or something, right? Like,
right.
There is no cut of the tone here. There's no comedic relief that we get at the end here. Like, it closes out on a downer, right? Like, yeah, Asajj Ventress made it out of this, but shit went wrong, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm totally in agreement with you.
I really liked all of that. So yeah, this was a strong episode. Honestly, I really liked this episode. So.
I would call this essential viewing for the Clone Wars.
Nothing has led me there yet. Okay, for Clone Wars, maybe yes. Star Wars, I would say no.
Okay,
those are differentiations I'll make.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's the episode we got coming up next week?
Bounty. We have Bounty coming
up. Do you think this is a continuation of, like, is this just a one-off that we see Massacre and then we're moving on to something else?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no memory of what Bounty is. This isn't the end of this story, that's for sure. Whether or not it picks up in Bounty, Bounty's an interesting title to try and guess with that, honestly. As somebody who has no memory of that episode.
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
Hopefully there's a jacked lumberjack man in that one, so we'll see.
Yeah, the picker upper. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah,
so I'm not real sure either, but I feel like we're gonna move forward with this story. I don't think we've seen the last of this, and that's what's leading me to believe that I think you're gonna come around and call this essential viewing for Star Wars and the Clone Wars, both.
Okay, so I look, there's definitely stuff involving Dathomir that is essential viewing. I don't know if it relates. I honestly don't remember how it fits to this episode.
Fair enough.
That's where my memory fails. There's definitely stuff coming. I think I remember vaguely soonish. Honestly,
I think it has to be happening soonish because we only got 3 episodes left.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
4.
I was like, what episode is this? This is 19. Again, see, under quarantine, I've lost sense of what day it is or what episode we're on, but we're on 419. Yeah, we're closing this arc out, so I'm gonna say with that said, Bounty has to finish this because there's only so much left to cover here.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so you're probably right. This is where I will become essential viewing. But I honestly still don't remember how this exactly ties into where I think this arc wraps up in this season, based on my memory of watching this 7 years ago now, probably.
Yeah, I do not remember, but I'm excited to see what happens. So long as Mother Talzin doesn't have another voodoo doll with a pin that she sticks it in the back,
and does nothing with, really.
That's the one thing I would have been okay with leaving out of this episode.
The rest of season 4, we're just closing out, right? We just go from here straight to the season finale, right? There's no jumping around or anything?
Nope. So the next 3 weeks we'll finish out season 4.
So 19, 20, 21, 22, and yeah, no jumping around. All right.
Nope.
Huh.
That is it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. So yeah, once we get to the season finale, we'll have to kind of revisit this question of essential viewing. We've never really quite asked that before. We've brought it up.
I think we've more talked about whether or not an episode is like, maybe skip this one if you're
right.
If you're getting if you want to breeze through the Clone Wars, like this you can skip, this you can skip, this you can skip. But I'm taking that the other direction and say, if you've never watched the Clone Wars, this is something that you should watch.
Right. Just because you bring it up, and I feel like we always ask this question in relation to Resistance, only because Resistance was kind of a hot mess on its own. And again, in a more broader context, based on when we are recording this, which is about mid-May of 2020 here, just because you brought it up, I kind of want to explore that question of, I don't know if we talked about this on air. I forget what we've talked about on air or like leading into the pre-roll, but based on like kind of my personal mental viewpoint of Star Wars, like if you want to get it, I'm not about gatekeeping who is calling themselves Star Wars fans, right? You can be a fan of, if you consider yourself a Star Wars fan, great, we can chat about that, but some people that I've gotten into conversations with are like, no, your understanding of the Force is fucked because you aren't taking into account the Mortis arc. I'm like, I don't give a shit about the Mortis arc. The Mortis arc is weird, like I get it. I get where that viewpoint's coming from. Right. But I'm just saying, like, if I'm going to try and explain this to a 5-year-old, then I'm not going to bring in brother and sister and father into this. Like, no.
Or Mother Talzin.
Yeah. Not, yeah. So anyway, hierarchy is movies. Movies are obviously the main points.
Right. The Clone Wars movie that came out August 15th,
Yes.
2008. Right.
So all live action movies, all live action movies, and the only other property I will put on that same hierarchy is Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That's the only other property I'll put on there. Then other supplemental viewing would be like Clone Wars and Rebels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like books and comics, right? So
And so where does the holiday special fall? Because that's a live action movie.
Nowhere. No.
That's all the way at the top.
Nope. So theatrical movies only. Theatrical live action movies. But in terms of, okay, so like trying to explain to somebody who has like never seen Star Wars where to start, right? Like that's a thing. That's definitely a thing. Like, so I'm like, no, just start with the movies, release order, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But now with like Disney Plus coming out and with season 7 of Clone Wars, I have people like coming to me and they're like, oh, is Clone Wars a thing I should watch? You know?
I think you have to gauge the type of experience that they want. Like my
Right.
parents, I called my mom on Mother's Day.
Uh-huh.
And like, hey mom, happy Mother's Day. What you doing? She was like, well, your dad and I just watched those 3 new Star Wars movies. So they watched the sequel trilogy, and then they were going to watch the original trilogy, and then I don't know what they're doing after that. But that's what my mom did on Mother's Day. Proud of you, Mom. And it's not that was my mom's first experience with Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
as you could imagine.
Yeah.
But she, I don't believe, has seen the sequel movies. She's probably seen The Force Awakens. I don't know if she's seen The Last Jedi. But, you know, for my mom, like, hey, that's totally cool. Like, you pick a trilogy, watch it, move on to something else.
Right.
And when they're done with that, I'm going to say, hey, watch The Mandalorian. I don't think she would ever sit down and watch The Clone Wars just because it's animated, right?
Right.
But people closer to my age, right,
Mm-hmm.
that have never seen Star Wars are like, hey, what do I do? And I'm like, how deep do you want to go here? And they're like, I want to go all the way deep. And I'm like, all right. And I'll recommend it start to finish. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, yeah, because, like, to your question about, like, essential viewing, I don't think anything in Clone Wars will affect the upper hierarchy, right?
Right.
Except for Season 7. That Season 7...
And Darth Maul coming back.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so in retroactively working out the last 4 episodes of Season 7, there are other arcs that you kind of have to get to understand that. But really, the only thing that changes anything about the movies is just certain facts revealed during those last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, right? Those back engineered the movies to give themselves a purpose to exist. But like with this particular episode or Geonosian Zombies or whatever, you know, they're a fun adventure to know that happened in between episodes 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Do they change my view of episode 3? Not really, right?
Fair enough.
It just makes me ask more questions of like why Anakin wasn't concerned about this Padawan that he had this whole time, right? Like, so
Yeah.
the only reason though, sorry, we're like 5 minutes deep into this conversation of this, but like what is changing though is Filoni's continued involvement in Mandalorian, which I have just now established as primary top hierarchy viewing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It, based on rumors for season 2, sounds like there will be characters that are from Clone Wars.
Yeah, we're getting an extension of the Clone Wars into live action.
Exactly. So now, because of that, like Clone Wars just bumped itself up just a little bit more, right? So that's like I have
Lorenzo's hierarchy of needs is changing.
It's hard to, yeah, it's hard to just it changes every day, basically.
Yeah.
Because like my brother, who has only seen the films, he has never watched Clone Wars, never watched Rebels. He is just starting the Clone Wars now, based on my recommendation of how good season 7 is, and also because of this casting news of Ahsoka and Boba Fett, possibly Rex.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, dude, no, you have to sit down and watch Clone Wars. Like, watch all of it. Season 1's going to be rough, but just push through it, like that sort of thing. So, anyways, your question of just
whether or not this is a need to watch episode.
A need to watch episode for sure. I'll say, as Clone Wars goes, this is definitely one of the better episodes. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. And I enjoyed this one a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going moving forward
for round 2. Yeah. So yeah, we'll figure that out next week when we come back. But anything else you gotta say? Yeah.
Anything else would be pure babble.
Oh well, we've been doing that for the last 10 minutes. I have, anyways.
Fair enough.
That said, if you have any comments and want me, to tell me to fuck off on how important Clone Wars might be or might not be,
I was gonna say that may not be necessary, but when you put it that way, hey, share your opinion if you want to hear, if you want to let Lorenzo know why it's all essential, including Resistance.
Oh God, let's not go that far. Oh, that's not funny, Kevin. You can reach out to us. The easiest way is just go to notthenerds.com. All of our stuff is there. So the playlist from YouTube is there. But you can always, of course, reach us on Facebook and Twitter, and just drop in comments wherever you may be seeing this, whether that be YouTube or Apple Podcasts as well. But again, notthenerds.com is the easiest place to find us. But as always, we like to give our thanks to Anthony, who put that together for us.
Yep.
And he's
Blue the Beard.
Yep, Blue the Beard on Twitter. As always, we also like to thank Lindsay at strangefantasymusic@gmail.com, who put together the jingle you hear at the beginning and end of every episode, and also Kevin, who put together our cover art. He's at They Call Me K-Dub on Twitter as well, if you'd like to reach out to any of them. So as always, we like to thank them. But until next time, I've been Lorenzo.
Kevin Horde here.
These aren't the nerds you're looking for.
Bye-bye. Stay safe, everybody.